All right, and joining us now, former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor, Katie McFarland. Katie, always great to have you with us here. Your reaction to these phone calls that President Trump had with President Zelenskyy and President Putin. How do you think this is going to play out?
And it's just, Trump is brilliant. You know, he's an extraordinary negotiator. There's a reason that he has that reputation. So what has he done in a couple of weeks' time? He's taken a war that's basically a war of attrition with frozen zones. And he said, let's stir it up and let's have a negotiation. So what had happened prior to this was that the Biden administration had encouraged Ukraine to don't go to any negotiating table until Russia, as a precondition, gives all the land back. Well, that wasn't going to happen. And at the same time, President Trump has said to Zelenskyy, you know, you have rare earth minerals. We would really like to have access to those. We'd really like to help develop them. So the way this is coming out is as follows. By President Trump saying, you're not getting the land back, you're not joining NATO, he's all of a sudden given Ukraine a lot of incentives to go to the negotiating table. At the same time, he said to Vladimir Putin, you know, you go to the negotiating table, but I'm giving Ukraine everything it needs up until the point where we get a deal. So then the incentive is for Russia to go to the negotiating table. And he's gotten everybody now to agree to a negotiation. You know, the whole thing of this, it's been frozen. It's been, nobody's gotten any, Ukraine wasn't going to win this war. Russia wasn't going to win this war. If Russia wanted it all, it would be slowly, grindingly over years and decades of time. But now there is a deal potentially there, where the United States has access to their rare earth minerals, where Russia gets a deal, doesn't like every part of it, but it's a deal. Ukraine won't like every part of it, but it's a deal. And then what happens is that the West rushes into with an economic opportunity to rebuild Ukraine. So while Ukraine doesn't win the war, Ukraine could win the peace.
Katie, your thoughts about maybe some of the European Union countries, and they don't like maybe how this negotiation's going. They're the closest. They're closer to Ukraine than we are. Maybe they should pony up more.
You know, the first phone call President Trump took in his first term, Bob, was he took a phone call from the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And first thing out of her mouth, what are you going to do about Ukraine? And he comes back, what are you going to do about Ukraine? You're the neighbor. It's your neighborhood. Why should we be defending everybody? Why should we be paying everything when you're just sitting on the sidelines? It's your security. So I think that it's dawned on the people in the United in all of Europe, really, in NATO, that they've got to sort of ante up. They've got to do their fair share. But at the same time, this deal doesn't happen without Donald Trump.
Katie, also want to get your thoughts on the tariffs that President Trump is discussing overall, but also specifically today, those reciprocal tariffs.
Okay, so this is really interesting. For years, people have said free trade is what we used to have before. In other words, American goods would go into another country, maybe with a 25% tariff tax. Their goods, that country's goods, could come into the United States with a 2% tariff. Now, that's not a fair or reciprocal tariff. So that's why President Trump has said, look, forget the words fair, equal. Let's just have it reciprocal. If they want to charge us 25%, great, we'll charge 25%. If they want to go to zero, we'll go to zero. But it should be fair across the board. And that's the big difference. And President Trump, with all these tariff wars, he understands the one thing that is we've always had the ability, but nobody's ever taken advantage of it. We have, as Bob just said, the biggest market in the world. Other countries need to sell their stuff to us a whole lot more than we need to buy it from them. And that gives us all the leverage.
All right, Katie McFarland, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.